Today we uncover 5 of the most disturbing deaths at Great Smoky Mountains National Park. These true stories reveal the dark side of one of America's most visited parks. From mysterious disappearances to tragic accidents, each case leaves behind unanswered questions. Stay tuned as we dive into these chilling tales that will make you think twice before venturing into the wilderness alone. It was September 11, 2020, when Patrick Madura entered the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. The morning was cool and the forest was alive with the sounds of wildlife. Patrick, a 43-year-old man from Elgin, Illinois, was an avid hiker and camper with a deep love for the outdoors. He had traveled to this national park many times before, drawn by its beauty and tranquility. This trip, however, would be his last. Patrick had set up camp at Campsite 82 in the remote Hazel Creek area. This part of the park was known for its seclusion and natural beauty, making it a favorite among experienced backpackers. The area is dense with trees, and the creek winds its way through the landscape, adding a serene touch to the rugged terrain. Around mid-morning, a group of backpackers trekking through Hazel Creek noticed something unusual. They spotted an unoccupied tent at Campsite 82. At first, they thought nothing of it. It wasn't uncommon for campers to leave their tents while exploring the surrounding area. But as they continued their hike, they made a grisly discovery on the other side of the creek. What appeared to be human remains were scattered near the water's edge, and a large black bear weighing about 240 pounds was scavenging on the remains. The backpackers quickly realized the severity of the situation and reported their findings to park authorities. Park law enforcement rangers and wildlife officers responded swiftly. When they arrived at the scene, they observed the bear still actively scavenging on the remains. Given the danger posed by the bear, the rangers decided to euthanize it immediately. The area was then secured, and Campsite 82, along with the Hazel Creek Trail, was closed to the public. The remains were later identified as those of Patrick Madura. The chief medical examiner of North Carolina conducted an autopsy to determine the cause of death. The findings were harrowing. Patrick's body showed multiple puncture wounds consistent with bear claws and bite marks. Some of these wounds showed signs of hemorrhage, indicating they were inflicted before he died. His scalp, finger, back, and lower extremities all bore lacerations. Additionally, he had fractured ribs with hemorrhage in the surrounding muscle and a similar injury to his left lung, all suggesting that the injuries occurred while he was still alive. The autopsy took almost a year to complete, and the final report confirmed that Patrick Madura likely died due to trauma caused by a bear attack. The manner of death was ruled an accident. The report also noted that Patrick's heart, lungs, and brain showed no evidence of significant natural disease, further supporting the conclusion that his death resulted from the bear attack. This tragic incident marked the second bear-related fatality in the history of the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. The park, known for its stunning scenery and diverse wildlife, is home to an estimated 1,500 black bears. These animals are a symbol of the Smokies, but they are also dangerous wild animals. Their behavior can be unpredictable, and attacks on humans, though rare, can be fatal. Bill Stiver, the supervisory wildlife biologist for the park, emphasized the inherent risks associated with hiking and camping in bear country. Black bears are the largest predator in the park, and although rare, attacks on humans have occurred, inflicting serious injury and death, he stated. Stiver also reiterated the importance of taking necessary precautions while in bear country, including hiking in groups of 3 or more, carrying bear spray, complying with all backcountry closures, properly following food storage regulations, and remaining at a safe viewing distance from bears at all times. Patrick's death serves as a horrifying example of the dangers that can be present in the wilderness. Despite his experience and knowledge of the outdoors, he fell victim to one of nature's most powerful predators. The park takes active measures to prevent human-bear conflicts, such as providing aerial storage cables for backpackers to hang their gear and food, educating visitors on how to respond if a bear is encountered, and closing backcountry campsites when bear activity is reportedly high in a given area. But even with these precautions, the wilderness remains unpredictable. If attacked by a black bear, rangers strongly recommend fighting back with any object available. People should attempt to look large, not run or turn away from the bear, and remember that the bear may view them as prey. It was a mild, sunny day on June 6, 2015, when Jenny Bennett set out for another solo hike in the Greenbrier area of the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. Jenny, a 62-year-old avid hiker from Sylva, North Carolina, was well known for her love of the mountains. She had a deep connection to the Smokies, a place she described as her favorite in the world. Jenny's passion for hiking started years ago. Born in Arlington, Virginia, she moved to Knoxville in 1983 and joined the Smoky Mountain Hiking Club. Her confidence and skill grew rapidly, especially after a challenging off-trail hike to Tourist Bunyan with her then-husband Chris Hebb. Jenny often hiked with legendary off-trail hikers like Charlie Klabunde and Al Watson, which secured her reputation as a fearless explorer. Jenny's life took her away from the Smokies for 2 decades. She lived in Gloucester, Massachusetts with her longtime companion Bob Parley. However, their split in 2009 brought her back to the mountains. She moved to Brevard, North Carolina, and later to Silva. Her return marked the beginning of 5 years of intense off-trail hiking, both solo and with friends. Jenny documented her adventures on her WordPress blog, Endless Streams and Forests, and published 2 books, including a mystery novel set in the Smokies titled Murder at the Jump-Off. Despite her extensive hiking experience, Jenny's final years were marked by personal struggles. She developed a severe knee problem that caused her knee to dislocate during hikes. Despite the pain, she continued her adventures, often forcing her knee back into place to complete her treks. In early 2015, the passing of her mentor, Charlie Klabunde, deeply affected her. She organized a hike to disperse his ashes, but had to turn back due to her knee giving out once again. This setback weighed heavily on her. By March 31, 2015, Jenny decided to leave North Carolina and move to St. Johnsbury, Vermont, to be closer to her sister. She sold her house, packed her belongings, and planned to move on June 1st. The prospect of leaving the Smokies brought mixed emotions. Jenny was excited about the move, but also saddened by the thought of leaving the mountains she cherished. Her last blog posts on May 24th and 27 reflected this bittersweet sentiment. On either May 30th or May 31st, 2015, Jenny returned to the Lester Prong area, a place she had visited countless times. This time she went alone. Her goal was to revisit her beloved trails one last time before the move. However, she never made it back. Jenny was reported missing on June 6, 2015, and her car was found at the Porter's Flat trailhead the next day. A search and rescue team from the National Park Service discovered Jenny's body on June 8, 2015. She was found sitting in Porter's Creek, about 4 miles up the trail, with her head resting on rocks. The autopsy report concluded that she had died of environmental hypothermia due to cold exposure from partial submersion in the creek. Bruises on her right hip and elbow indicated a fall, but she had no internal injuries. The report also revealed a toxic level of diphenhydramine, an antihistamine, in her system. This pointed towards a possible intentional overdose, suggesting she might have taken the medication to end her life. Jenny's death shocked the hiking community. Many speculated about her final moments. Did she fall into the creek accidentally and succumb to hypothermia? Or did she intentionally take her life by ingesting a large amount of diphenhydramine? Her brother Peter acknowledged that the exact events leading up to her death would likely remain a mystery. He took comfort in knowing that Jenny died in the place she loved most. On August 31, 2015, the National Park Service issued a press release confirming the findings of the autopsy. The Sevier County Medical Examiner's Office concluded that Jenny's death was caused by environmental hypothermia, with the high level of diphenhydramine in her blood being a significant contributing factor. The report described her final moments in detail. Jenny was found in a sitting position in the icy creek, her head resting on rocks, with bruises consistent with a fall but no serious injuries. The high concentration of diphenhydramine suggested she might have taken an overdose, leading her body to shut down before she succumbed to hypothermia. Jenny's passing was a significant loss to the hiking community. To honor her memory, the Smoky Mountains Hiking Club organized a memorial hike on September 13, 2015. Participants gathered at the Porters Creek trailhead and hiked to the SMHC cabin site. Peter Bennett, Jenny's brother, dispersed a portion of her cremains at the cabin site. The event included a celebration of life service at the Greenbrier Picnic Pavilion, where friends and fellow hikers shared stories and memories of Jenny. The following day, a smaller group of hikers, including Peter, went off-trail to Lester Prong to disperse more of Jenny's cremains at the site known as Charlie's Rock, where Charlie Klabunde's ashes had been scattered. This final act was a tribute to Jenny and her love for the Smokies. Jenny Bennett's life and death left a lasting impact on those who knew her and the hiking community. She was a fearless explorer who took on challenges that few others would dare. Her adventures, documented in her blog and books, continue to inspire current and future lovers of the Smokies. On November 24, 2020, before 1:40 p.m., Wesley Brandon Stedham arrived at the Chimney Tops overlook along Newfound Gap Road in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. The day was clear, and the autumn air was crisp. 48-year-old Brandon, as he was known by his friends and family, had a deep appreciation for nature and loved exploring new places. This passion had brought him to the Great Smoky Mountains, a place renowned for its stunning vistas and beauty. Brandon lived in Warrior, Alabama, and was a well-known figure in his community. He was particularly passionate about high school football and was heavily involved in the local sports scene. He served as a radio announcer for Hayden High School Wildcats games, a role he took great pride in. His friends and colleagues described him as larger than life, always full of energy and enthusiasm. On this fateful day, however, his love for photography and the outdoors would lead to a tragic accident. As Brandon stood at the chimney top's overlook, he decided to step down a steep slope below the overlook to get a better angle for a photograph. The chimney top's overlook, located along the busy Newfound Gap Road, is one of the park's most popular spots, offering breathtaking views of the surrounding mountains. However, the terrain can be treacherous with steep slopes and loose rocks. Brandon carefully made his way down the slope, trying to find the perfect spot for his photo, but as he descended, he lost his footing. The ground beneath him gave way and he fell approximately 50 feet down the steep embankment. The fall was catastrophic, and he suffered severe head trauma as a result. Witnesses quickly called for help, and park rangers were dispatched to the scene. The park rangers, along with members of the park's technical search and rescue team, arrived at the chimney top's overlook shortly after receiving the call. They quickly assessed the situation and realized that reaching Brandon would be a challenging task. The steep slope and rugged terrain made a direct approach impossible. They decided to use a rope and pulley system to safely descend to Brandon's location. The rescuers worked swiftly, setting up the ropes and carefully making their way down the slope. When they reached Brandon, it was clear that his injuries were severe. Despite their best efforts to provide medical assistance, Brandon had already succumbed to his injuries. The rescuers secured his body and began the difficult process of bringing him back up to the overlook. Back in Warrior, Alabama, the news of Brandon's death spread quickly. His friends, family, and the community were in shock. Robert Bradford, a fellow sports announcer and close friend of Brandon, was particularly devastated. Bradford recalled the first time he met Brandon 5 years earlier at a Hayden Wildcats game. Their friendship had grown strong over the years, and they spoke almost every day. The sudden loss of his friend was a heavy blow. Bradford described Brandon as a man who was always full of life, someone who loved his family and friends deeply and enjoyed every moment to the fullest. He was a fixture at Hayden High School football games, both home and away, and his voice had become synonymous with the Wildcats' Friday night games. Brandon's enthusiasm for the game and his dedication to the students he cheered on were unmatched. The head football coach at Hayden High School, Keith Register, also spoke about the impact Brandon had on the team and the community. He noted that Brandon's presence in the booth, both at home and on the road, would be sorely missed. Brandon had a unique way of connecting with the listeners and making them feel a part of the game no matter where they were. His loss left a void that would be difficult to fill. The community rallied together to honor Brandon's memory. A tribute was planned for him at an upcoming Hayden Wildcats game, a fitting gesture for a man who had given so much to the sport and the school. Friends and family shared stories and memories of Brandon, remembering his larger-than-life personality and his unwavering love for those around him. Mitzi Sue Susan Clements, a 53-year-old auditor from Cincinnati, Ohio, was last seen in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park on September 25, 2018. Susan was hiking with her 20-year-old daughter near Clingman's Dome, a popular spot known for its breathtaking views. The pair had been enjoying a few days of hiking, tackling trails that were longer and more strenuous than the Forney Ridge Trail, which they were on that day. This trail, considered moderate, runs for 1.8 miles with an elevation change of about 400 feet. On that afternoon, they were returning from Andrews Bald, a scenic grassy area. When they were about a quarter mile from Andrews Bald, Susan's daughter decided to hike ahead to Clingman's Dome Tower and planned to meet her mother back at the parking lot. The daughter reached the tower and, after spending some time there, returned to the parking lot. Susan never showed up. Panicked, her daughter immediately alerted park officials, and a search for Susan began. As night fell, the park staff, experienced in dealing with missing people in such vast terrain, knew they had to act quickly. Susan was an experienced hiker, well-versed in the challenges of the trails, yet she had vanished in an area teeming with natural hazards. Initial searches covered the trails, focusing on the path Susan was supposed to take. However, no sign of her was found. The search for Susan quickly escalated into a massive operation. It involved 175 trained personnel from 5 states and over 50 organizations, including helicopters, drones, and K-9 units. They combed through more than 500 miles of trails, but dense vegetation and rugged terrain made the search extremely difficult. The area around Clingman's Dome, though popular, is intersected by many trails and surrounded by thick forests, which can disorient even seasoned hikers. As days passed, the search expanded beyond the trails. Jelena Campbell, a spokesperson for the park, explained that most people picture the park via the trails but do not understand the true difficulty of the landscape off-trail. It's easy to miss a turn or intersection, especially in the foggy, rainy, and dark conditions that Susan encountered. By the weekend, the search intensified with more personnel and specialized equipment. Despite the efforts, they faced numerous challenges, including heavy rain that fell in the initial days of the search, which hindered efforts to find tracks or scents. The thick rocky landscape made it almost impossible to locate any clues. Searchers systematically cleared all trails and moved to off-trail areas, focusing on downhill drainages where disoriented individuals often end up. On October 3rd, after a week of relentless searching, Susan's body was found in incredibly thick vegetation down the steep Huggins Creek drainage in Swain County, North Carolina. This location was about 2 miles west of the Klingman's Dome parking lot and 3/4 of a mile south of the Appalachian Trail. Retrieving Susan's body was a daunting task. The terrain was so rough that a Tennessee Army National Guard helicopter was needed for the extraction. Park officials confirmed that no foul play was suspected, and the cause of death was determined to be hypothermia. Susan was found wearing green and black clothing, which made it even more challenging for search teams to spot her in the dense forest. The discovery of Susan's body brought a mixture of relief and sorrow to her family and the search teams. It provided some closure, knowing what had happened after days of uncertainty. Her family expressed their gratitude to the National Park Service and all the agencies involved in the search. They appreciated the tireless efforts of the searchers, pilots, drone operators, dog trackers, and rescuers. It was around 11:43 p.m. on November 17, 2021, when a 2019 Ford Fiesta was driving southbound on the spur between Pigeon Forge and Gatlinburg in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. The night was dark, and the narrow, winding roads of the park were a significant challenge for drivers. This particular stretch of road was notorious for its sharp turns and lack of adequate lighting, making it a dangerous route, especially at night. The car, driven by 22-year-old Victoria Dellaway, was traveling near the Gumstand Road intersection when Victoria lost control of the vehicle. In an instant, the car veered off the road, crashing into the river that runs alongside the spur. The impact was severe, and the vehicle quickly became submerged in the cold waters of the Little Pigeon River. Inside the car, Rebecca Hamby, also 22 and from Sevierville, was seated in the front passenger seat. The force of the crash and the subsequent submersion of the vehicle left her with fatal injuries. Emergency responders, including park rangers, Gatlinburg Police and Fire Departments, and the Pigeon Forge Police Department, arrived at the scene swiftly. Despite their efforts to rescue the occupants, Rebecca did not survive. Her body was recovered from the submerged vehicle, marking a tragic end to what should have been a routine drive. Victoria Dellaway was found injured but alive. She was promptly transported by ambulance to LeConte Medical Center in Sevierville, Tennessee for treatment. The specifics of her injuries and her condition at the hospital were not disclosed. The Great Smoky Mountains National Park is known as the most visited national park in the United States, attracting millions of visitors every year. However, the park's roadways can be risky. The narrow, winding paths, combined with limited night lighting, make driving at night especially dangerous. This unfortunate incident highlights the risks associated with driving in such conditions. The investigation into the crash is ongoing, with park rangers working alongside the Tennessee Highway Patrol to determine the exact cause of the accident. There are many questions yet to be answered. What caused Victoria to lose control of the vehicle? Was it a momentary lapse in concentration, a mechanical failure, or perhaps an external factor like an animal on the road? The investigation aims to provide clarity on these points, but for now the answers remain elusive. This tragic event underscores the need for caution when driving through the park, especially at night. The Great Smoky Mountains National Park, with its stunning views and rich biodiversity, offers much to those who visit. However, it also demands respect for its challenging terrain and the potential dangers that come with it. Rebecca Hamby's death is a sign of the risks inherent in even the most routine activities. Driving, something many of us do daily without much thought, can turn deadly in a split second. This incident is an example of how quickly things can go wrong, especially in environments that are inherently more dangerous, like the narrow, winding roads of a national park at night.